Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Coming Home 2021. This is our first Wednesday session, and it's so wonderful to have you with us. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for just bringing yourself and of your time so that the Lord can come and do something in our lives. Do what only He can do and really change us into that place of resilience. And when we speak about just resilience in community, this is so important that you guys come together and you spend time together and you talk about the things that we are going to just be talking about over these next couple of weeks. We've already started on Sunday, so please continue this journey with us, and please try to finish all of these, especially the Wednesday sessions as well, so that we can really build community and really build this resilience in us. So when we speak about resilience, what does that mean? It means that, many of us, we are familiar with a spring, okay? Not spring after the winter, like a spring that you find in your car, the springs that are there with your shocks, and maybe in your pen, that's a clicking pen, then there's a spring inside of that. So I'm not necessarily going to explain to you just what its official title is, being resilient. But this picture, I want that to stick in your mind. I want you to know that resilience is like just squashing a spring to the point where you can't do it anymore. But then, as soon as the pressure is off, that spring rebounds and gets back to the place of where that spring originated from, or you can, if you put something on a spring, then and you let it go, then all of that energy just pops that spring or that thing that was on the spring, a lot further than it was before. So that is what I want you guys to remember when we think about resilience and what resilience really means. So when we think about people that shows this thing of resilience, then, as I've said in my sermon, there's a lot of people that we find in history, that went through absolutely horrible and terrifying circumstances, and they got through the other side, and they got through, bruised and battered, yes, but they came through with flying colors. And then when people like us, on this side of that equation, look back and look into their lives and ask them, and there's people that have done that, went to the people of the Nazi concentration camps, went to those people and spoke to them and asked, but why? Why did you make it? And, across the board, there are two things that really stands out when you get to that place of asking people, but why were you resilient and other people not? And then they would say, well, those people that make it are people that have got a very strong faith in God and also a strong relationship with the community or the people that are around them. Those are more resilient people than the others that does not necessarily have that. You can get people that might not fall into that box, but in general, those people that have got that faith in God and a strong community are more resilient than others to pass through tough circumstances with flying colors than others might be. And that's what I'm trusting God for as we go through these weeks, that God will make us, His people, just more resilient as we start to practice these things and put it into practice in our lives to become more resilient. So when we look at literature, we see the world has got words and phrases and things that they look at, which is not necessarily biblical, as it comes from the Bible, but, the Bible, in my opinion, always trumps that. So what I found this little graph where they just said, individuals have more resilience if they have these types of characteristics or traits or just things in their lives, is The first one is that they have got a locus of control inside of them. So they are very, in control of their own destiny. But we'll get to that just a little bit later. They've got this confidence or this growth mindset. So they are confident in their life, and they're going to grow through stuff, and they're going to go through things, and they're going to become better people. Those are the things that the world says. And then obviously temperament has got a big bearing on this. Some of us are just more resilient by way of how we are wired, in our personality. People like that. There's nothing that stops them, and if there's something that's tough, they're going to do that because they're going to show you that they are going to do that. So that is something that also plays a part. Then obviously your mental health and your physical health is, it's part and parcel of how resilient you are. And something that I found, especially in my own life also is, when you struggle mentally, just go and look at your life physically. And that connection about just our mental capacity, or struggles or whatever, is closely linked to our physical activity. So how does your physical activity look? Because sometimes when we are depressed or something just mentally in our life gives us trouble, then when we start to physically just exercise and move, that gets sorted out. But anyway, that's just a freebie for you. And then those people that have got goals and interests that are there, they seem to be more resilient than others. But the one that I just want to focus on is the first one. I want to focus on those people with a locus of control. Because this is where, again, I think the Bible trumps even what the world sees, with what that is part and parcel of human nature that people can observe, but the author of human nature has got the final say. So when we look at that locus of control, Emil Werner says that resilient people have a strong internal focus of control, and they believe that they are in control of their own destinies. Even if bad things happen to them, they feel that they can choose how that they let that impact them. Okay, so that's what the world says. Now, let's turn to the Word of God. The Word of God is, and I'm going to speak about the story of Joseph just now, but the locus of control, when you are a Christian, moves from outside of you, of inside of you, to inside of God. So if we move the locus of control of our life and everything that happens, not in the sense of, my ability to control my own destiny, but to move that to the place where you trust God, that He is in control of your destiny. That makes it 100 times more powerful than you just being in that locus of control inside of your own heart. And I think that is the main reason why faith in God really impacts people and their resilience so much. Because if you've got a strong faith in God, knowing that He is in control, no matter what goes on around you, then you become more resilient in any case. Okay, so let's turn to the story of Joseph, and I want to show you just a quick summary. I'm just not going to show it to you. I'm just going to tell you a quick summary, and I'm going to read some scriptures just regarding that. Joseph was sold by his brothers that were jealous of him, into slavery. Now I'm thinking if my brother and sister, would have sold me into slavery, I would have had some issues, man. Because if I've been sold into slavery, now I don't have a say for myself. I must do whatever gets told to me, and it's not a good space. That's not going to help me at all. Because I'm going to be mad, and a lot of other things. So then he starts to work in Potiphar's house, and then, at that stage he's doing his job and what he's doing so well that he becomes in charge. He's the one in charge of Potiphar's house. And then his wife, Potiphar's wife, gets an interest in Joseph, and she wants him, man, badly. She wants him. And he, keeps away from her, and then she grabs him one time. And then he leaves his cloak behind as he shakes himself loose, and she, accuses him that he wanted to do something to her that she actually wanted to do to him, to her husband. And then her husband, throws him in prison for what he's done. And now, something that looked better now looks bad again. Now he sits in the jail cell and I'm just thinking, what goes on in his mind, in that space where he's had these big dreams of God and now all of a sudden he's sitting in jail for a long time. And then people come, the baker and the guy that poured the drinks for the king, they're there, or for Pharaoh. They had dreams. He gives them the dreams and he says, please remember me when you're out. And they don't. They don't remember him. And then he sits there. But then, ultimately, we know the story ends well where Pharaoh gets a dream. And then the guy that pours his drink remembers about Joseph. They go fetch him, and then he becomes second in command of the whole of Egypt. And then his brothers come back because now the famine is there and they are looking for food, and here they come. And then I love this story. This is a wonderful drama if you want to go read from Genesis 44 onwards to Genesis 50. So we find there in Genesis 45 verse 4, now his brothers are back, and Joseph says to his brothers, please come near to me. So they came near, and then he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. But now, do not therefore be grieved and angry with yourselves, because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years the famine has been in the land, and there are still 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. So he says to them, listen, don't feel bad. God sent me here for a time such as this. But then we find a lot more explicitly, the thing that really grabs my heart regarding the story of Joseph. And we find it in Genesis 50 verse 20 to 21. It says there, verse 20, but as for you, he's now speaking to his brothers again, but as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring it about, as it is to this day, to save many people alive. Now, through everything he's been through, he says to his brothers, listen, what you did, you meant for evil. And all of the circumstances that came about. And then ultimately Joseph says to them, but God meant it for good. So he turned it around for good. We know the scriptures, most of us know Romans 8:28 says, God will make all things work together for the good of those who love you. But sometimes we as Western Christians think that means he's going to give me money, he's going to give me my own house, own car, and all of those nice things, because then I'm happy. And if I'm happy, then God's happy. If God's happy, then I'm happy. And it's not like that. But God will always, when we put our locus of control in Him, make all our circumstances work together for the good of us who love Him, and then bring forth His glory. Now, I'm finishing this story and this session. I'm going to continue just regarding how do you do these things? How do you practically, like Joseph, do certain things to make you more resilient and to bring you to a place where Joseph ultimately was. But we'll get to that in our third Wednesday together. Now, Moses, we find this story in Exodus 3, verse 2. Now, I know, the story isn't exactly as I'm going to tell it now, but I want to pull it through to our lives as believers. So just bear with me for a moment. Exodus 3, verse 2 says, let me just get to Exodus 3, verse 2. It says there, and the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of the fire from the midst of a bush. So he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, but the bush was not consumed. And then Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush does not burn. And so when the Lord saw that he turned aside to look, God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, here I am. And then he said, do not draw near to this place. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground. Us as Christians that go through adverse circumstances, we find ourselves in a place where we can become a burning bush for so many people around us, where they see us burning. They see, the circumstances and the things that are in our life is not supposed to be, good for us. And we're burning, but we are not being burnt out. The same as Moses said when he looked at this bush. And then people tend to draw near to you when they see that in this adverse circumstances, you remain. You still stand. You don't burn up. You don't, shrivel up and die. You remain. And as they come near, from your life, God will start to speak into their lives, and then say, take the sandals off your feet, humble yourself. For the place on which you stand is holy ground, and people can encounter the Spirit of the Lord there in that place of your burning bush. So this evening or this morning, whenever you are watching this, I want you to think about this question. I want you to speak in your group about this. How does your locus of control look in this very moment? Inside yourself, or none of that, or whatever. But then ultimately, when you speak about it, like I did just now, your locus of control into God's hands, and speak about your circumstances, and speak about the things that you've seen. And then talk to one another about how your locus of control looks in your life at this moment. And then pray for one another and submit your heart to God, to bring you to that place where you relinquish that control and where your faith is in God, and that you know that He makes all things work together for our good. The Lord bless you.